So welcome. We've pressed go. If somebody, I can see some comments, count down and go. If somebody could also positively say, yes, I can hear you, that'd be fantastic. I'm just waiting. No, nobody's responding to my comments yet. I think there's a time delay on what I actually say and what you hear. While we do this test then, so you'll need to hear my voice. Hopefully you can see my screen. As I'm English, I should probably talk about the weather. We're in the middle of a storm, Storm Doris. If you're in Storm Doris, then keep safe. At the moment here, we're not too bad. They just blow the bins over and that kind of thing. I think we're going to inherit somebody's trampoline shortly. 60-mile-an-hour winds will do that, I guess. So, hey, Dorico, I can hear you now. Good. So hopefully everybody's the same. If you need to, put headphones on if you wish. Adjust your volumes, and we'll go from here. So, welcome. This is the Discover Dorico session for February. So, today I'll need to move fairly quickly, just because I need to keep this down to a limited time slot. There is a pause button, of course. So if you want to watch this again and pause anything, then feel free to do that. I'm also going to be. You should find that when I press things, like for example the spacebar here, you'll see it come up on the screen. So you'll see the shortcuts I'm using. I will also try and remember to tell you the shortcuts I'm using. I happen to be using a Mac today, but the shortcuts also, of course, also apply on PC. But yes, if you need to, pause at any time, that's fine. Rewatch this, no problem. Yes, there's a few people who say, well, if the screen's a bit blurry in YouTube, you can change your settings to 720p. Hello, Paul, and hopefully that should be okay. And yeah, so you should be able to see clearly what it is we're doing. If you want to ask questions at any time during the session, you can do that in the live chat session. I'll try and keep an eye on that as well. There's only me here, so it's me doing everything. If you want to ask questions between sessions, then you can do that at any time in the month. Just email Discover Dorico, which is all one word, discoverdorico@steinberg.de, and I'll get that email, and then we can use that to build the next session. Today we're going to be, I'm going to be answering some questions I had from some people. Although some of the questions are about kind of templates and master pages, and there are some of the questions that I've had in the last week that I will probably email and reply to you individually instead. But I had a few questions on various input mode options, kind of how to do various things in Dorico, inputting things. Now there are how-to videos on YouTube, but they're designed as little 2 and 3 minute short videos done by Anthony. They're great to watch, great to listen to. He's doing a fantastic job of those, and he's gone through write mode, and he's going to be doing some more engrave mode options and various other things. He's done setup mode already. But what I'm going to do today is kind of combine some of those together to actually create a piece and show you the kind of options that the kind of way I would use Dorico. So the shortcuts I would use and how I would go about things and to put a project together. Hopefully some of those will also be kind of tips and hints as to kind of how to do things. In some cases, there's more than one way of doing things, but I'll hopefully cover those as well. And like I said, if there's any questions at any point, then feel free to ask them. So to start off with, we've got our hub here. I can press New Empty Project. I can also press Apple N to start a new project, but I'll click the button since I'm here. We've got our first screen, so I'm going to press Shift P, and that's to add a player. And then I'm just going to type piano, and then press Enter. And you can see the shortcuts starting to appear at the bottom of the screen as well. So now I've got my piano. Now to start off with, I'm going to use a MIDI keyboard. to enter some of these notes. So I'm using a combination of the computer keyboard and the numbers across the top for the note durations, and a MIDI keyboard to enter the notes, because I'll be entering some chords. So to start off with, from here in setup mode, I just double click on the first part of the piano here, which takes me into write mode and gives me the caret line automatically. I can also, of course, use enter to toggle the caret line on and off. So if I select this rest and press enter, I can put it back on. But I often just double click. It's kind of, that's where I want to go from. Double click there, off we go, we can start. So now if I press the note values, so 6 for a crotchet up there, I can now enter the notes from my MIDI keyboard. Now, what I actually normally do, to be honest, because obviously we're in kind of open meter and everything else in Dorico, what I normally do at the very beginning, actually, I'll just press the left arrow to go back to the beginning, is press Shift K so I can enter a key signature. Now, I've noticed the little shortcut option at the bottom only tells you the capital letter version of the shortcut I'm about to enter, but I want the key of B flat. So I'm going to just press B. So well, Shift B and little b, and you can see in the pop over there it says B flat. It looked like I typed 2 capital B's, but obviously I didn't. Press enter, so we get B flat. So as you said in the pop over, just type B flat, key, done. And then I'm going to type Shift M for meter, and I'm just going to type 2/4 to put this into 2/4. So I normally, in this particular case, because I'm effectively copying some music, I'm not kind of composing. That's probably a different session we should maybe do at some point, that I'm starting to write music from here. And I know what it is I'm going to write, so I'm going to put it in a key signature and a time signature. So now I've pressed the right arrow just to move on slightly. You can see I've got my rhythm grid there set up, so I've moved on to the next crotchet. So I'm going to press a different note value just for quaver, and I'm going to continue entering notes from the MIDI keyboard. I'll keep switching. It is obviously slightly difficult to talk and do things at the same time, but there you go. Now, if you're following along, this is tricky because you don't know what it is I'm writing, although, to be honest, you probably guessed what the song is by now. So here we've got some notes inputted from the MIDI keyboard. Now I've noticed in the middle, actually, I forgot to put a rest in, which was a bit daft. So in here, actually, what I should have done, so I'm going to double click in there, move to where I want the rest to be, and then I'm going to press I for insert mode, which changes my caret so that I can enter a rest at this point. Now this is probably the only time you actually need to enter a rest in Dorico. Normally, and what we'll be doing later, well, in a couple of minutes, is just using the spacebar to move on. But in this particular case, I want to put a specific rest in there, and it happens to be a crotchet. So you can see on the left here, I've got crotchet selected. And what I'm going to do is just press comma, which is my shortcut for rests. And you see in the top left-hand panel up here, we've now got the rest selected. And then I'm going to just press, and I can now press any note I like. Because I've got rest enabled, and like I said, this is the only time I normally enable rests like this, I can now just press any letter. So D, I will put a rest in. Or if I just, for example, press backspace to delete that, if I could press any note on my MIDI keyboard, it will enter that rhythmic value, but obviously no note. So that enters the rest I wanted. And insert mode, I'm just going to turn it off, in Dorico is very useful when you've made mistakes. So it wasn't intentional, actually, but it's a useful way to explain. When you've made a mistake, especially copying something, or you just want to insert some music into there, you can do that with any notes or rests. So I'm just going to tap the comma again just to turn off rests, because I don't need rests anymore. And actually, I'm going to press enter again because I don't need the caret line in there anymore. Now, what I often do is then go back and put in things like slurs and staccato and those kind of things. So I'm going to make a few changes now. So I've clicked on this note here, and I just press S, which will put in a slur between those two notes. If I used to use the right arrow, I can now move on through the music, and when I get to various other positions, I just press S again, and I can add a slur. In this particular case, it's a fairly, it's a reasonably quick way of doing it for this particular bit of music. You can make multiple selections if you want to and add them that way, but it just depends, depends on the music. So for example, here, I'd actually like staccato dots on these 3 notes. So I'm just going to click on the beam there, which will select all of those notes. And I'll press the shortcut for the rhythm dot, sorry, for the staccato dot, which is also in the panel on the left. And also these semiquavers here, they are actually supposed to be a dotted rhythm. So I've clicked on the beam again just to select them, and I'm just going to press full stop on the keyboard, and that's going to give me a dotted rhythm. Now what Dorico is actually doing here is the first note, the first rhythmic position, it's added the dot, and to do that it's had to make the next note shorter. So when it got to the next note, it said, oh, well, I've already shortened this, so I'm not going to add a dot to it as well. I'll just move on. And then the next note, it said, all right, okay, I'll add a rhythm dot. That's fine. And then, well, because I've made the next one shorter, I'm not going to add a rhythm dot again. So that's fine. So I'll carry on. Now, if you really wanted all of those notes to be all dotted, so I just press undo for a second. Then in here, if I select the beam and I go and I press I for insert, and you'll see we get insert mode selected on the left here. Then when I press rhythm dot, it would actually make all of those notes dotted. In this particular case, that's not what I wanted. So we'll turn that off. And due to an issue I've got at the moment, yes, it removed my slurs accidentally. So now we've got that one correct. I also noticed I need the same down here, so I'll select the beam, just press full stop. Oh yes, I slurred, sorry. And I also at the beginning want to put in a dynamic, so I'll select this note here. I just press Shift D for dynamic, and I'll just press P, and then press Enter, and I'll get a piano marking. So now for the left hand of the piano, so I'm going to double click down here. And I've got the caret line. This is where I want to start entering music from. I can select the note value, but actually almost all the notes I now want to enter are staccato. So I'm going to turn on the staccato dot as well. And then I'm going to enter the notes in the left hand. So here we go. And then turn the staccato dot off and change the note duration just to finish that bar. There we go. I pressed escape. It's probably as a lot of people do, when you kind of want to turn off the note input options, there's another program that does very similar. Yes, Sibelius. So I sometimes press escape, sometimes I press enter, and that will turn the caret line off. So here we've got the left hand of the piano entered. So don't think made too many mistakes in that so far, so we can carry on. So now maybe we want to carry on with the music. So I mean, as you've noticed, Dorico will just keep on adding bars as we were entering music. But if you actually want to add some bars and kind of see what it is you're working on, what I normally do is I kind of double click at the end over here, make sure I'm right at the end of that bar, and just press Shift B for bars. And then, for example, you just press, say, in this dialogue, you just say +8. And so you get 8 new bars. So if you want to add bars and then fill them with music, that's no problem. So now if we want to carry on with the piano part here, since we have the caret line there, now what I want to do is enter notes and rests. So again, I'll still use the MIDI keyboard for now. So I'll choose a note value. Then if I press the space bar first, then it's going to enter a rest of that value. You don't see it initially, that's fine. You just carry on. Now, I've also entered those notes in the wrong octave due to the MIDI keyboard I'm using being quite small, so I'll shift octaves. So I press backspace then just to delete the notes that I didn't want anymore. So if I enter those 3 notes and then press the space bar, so I can carry on entering notes like this. Now actually, these probably should also be staccato dotted. So I will press the staccato dot. Oh, my mistake, I'm in the wrong bar now, aren't I? Yep, there we go. Now, in this next bar, it's going to be slightly more complicated. I'm just reading the comments. Where are any announcement about the new update? Yes, Paul's already answered, update due very soon. I will discuss at the end of this, actually, what some of the things are in the new update, but let me just carry on for now. So in this next bar, I need to, so it's slightly more complicated. So I'll enter the first note. Now I need a tuplet. I can turn it on from the menu on the left, but I'm just going to press semicolon, which will give me turn the tuplets option on. Now, for a lot of tuplets, you'd need to enter, for example, the ratio that you want to put in for the tuplets. So, for example, 6:4. But in the case at the moment, I just want triplets. So actually, what I need to do is where am I? Sorry, I was looking at the comments. How do you delete an empty bar between? Yes, well, we'll sorry, I'll go back to some of the comments in a minute. So so in here, if I want to change, sorry, I'm entering tuplets. So semicolon, press 3 just for a triplet. So the triplet's the one that you don't need to enter the specific ratio. You can just say 3. And now if I enter some notes in here, now in Dorico, if I carry on entering notes, it will carry on with the tuplets. Because until you turn it off, Dorico will just carry on entering them. So I'll undo those because I don't want them, and I'll just press, well, in an English keyboard, it's basically colon, so it's shift semicolon to turn those tuplets off. And then if I carry on with entering some notes, there we go. I'm trying to pay attention to what I'm writing for change. And then I'll carry on. So, oh, where am I? I really shouldn't read comments at the same time, but Paul's doing a good job of answering some of those. Thank you, Paul. Now, in this next bar, what I actually can do is probably just copy these notes because it's the same rhythm but different notes. So I'll select this bar, and all I'm doing, if you notice here, I'm just kind of clicking in a space between these notes and selecting that whole bar. Now, I could use Control-C, Control-V, copy and paste. But what I'll do is just hold down the Alt key and click in this bar here, so it will copy those notes over. Now, that's kind of handy, apart from, obviously, they're the right duration, but they're the wrong pitch. So now, when I press Enter to enter notes into here, I'm going to press L for lock duration, and you'll notice there's a little padlock on the very left-hand side that's lit up. So now when I enter some notes, all it's going to do is replace the ones I've already got with hopefully the right notes, if I could possibly play them. So there you've got lock duration, which, like I said, it keeps the same rhythmic duration, but it's going to change the pitch of those particular notes. So now we'll do the left hand of the piano. So from bar 9, I'm just going to double click over here. I need to change octaves, and so this is mainly all quavers. So again, I'm going to press the notes on the MIDI keyboard and then the space bar for the rest, because that will just move the caret on by the same rhythmic duration. There you go. So we now have the left-hand part here for the piano as well. So I should probably press save at some point, because that's generally a good idea, and give it a name and save the file. So now we probably also, we need to change a few other things on here. I'm going to need some staccato dots that I missed off at the beginning. So I'll select that bar, add some staccato dots. I think also I left them turned on for a bit too long. So these notes actually shouldn't be staccato dotted. So I'll turn those off, but they should be slurred. So I'll select this note here, and I'll Control or Command select this note here, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC, and press S. And then I'll select from here to here and press S. Actually, these notes should have been staccato. Like I said, it is possible, if you prefer to work this way, to turn the slur on, write some of the notes, then and turn the slur off again and do it as you're inputting notes. It's a personal preference, I think, and I tend to do, when I'm copying music like this, I'll tend to do it this way and add those options in later. So now I want to add a vocal line to this. So I'll go back to setup mode. So I'm going to press Apple 1 or Control 1 if you're on a PC. I'm going to press Shift P for player, and I'm going to type soprano. Now I've got my soprano here, but obviously it was added after the piano. So I'm just going to click and drag the soprano and add it above the piano there. So it's now changed. So when I go back to write mode, I've now got soprano above the piano. So from bar 9 over here, this is where the soprano starts singing. So I'll double click here. So if I just do this now with the computer keyboard instead, so a fair amount of the time I'm just using a laptop, maybe I'm on a train or I'm in an office somewhere or somewhere when I don't have a MIDI keyboard attached. So in the same way, I just press 6 to select the crotchet, and then I can just press B on the keyboard, and that will give me a B flat because of the key signature we're in. I don't need to say B flat, I can just say B. So then if I change to quavers, I can press F, and I can keep going. Now, you'll notice when I press C, I've got the next closest C to the position I was in because I was on F. If you want to use them, there are shortcuts. If I just back up for a second, there are shortcuts you can use. For example, on a Mac, you can use Control C to go down an octave, and you can use Alt Shift C to go up an octave. If you prefer to enter the notes that way, then there are shortcuts to do the octave as you enter the note. Actually, personally, I tend to use Apple Alt up and down. So I put the note in, knowing it's an F, and then if it appears in the wrong octave, I don't tend to think about it too much. I just go, oh yeah, and I just use Command Alt and up and down just to move the octave on that note. So it's going to happen on the next note as well, and I'll just move that one, and then I change the note value and enter some more notes. And in the same way as when I was using the MIDI keyboard earlier, I entered these all as semiquavers because, to be honest, I find that quicker to enter those and then press full stop to get the dotted rhythms I want. And I'll also just put a slur on there while I need it. And then I'll carry on. So double click here and carry on. So now on this next one, I need E. Oops, wrong duration. I'll need E, and then I need E natural. So I'm going to press 0, which will give me the natural symbol on the left, in the left-hand panel there. And then when I press E, I'll get an E natural, which just fell off the screen there. Sorry about that. So I get an E natural. You do enter the natural, sharp, or flat if you need it before you enter the note. And if you just think about it as the natural, the sharp, the flat symbol appears before the note head. So that's the way around we enter them. So now I need a dotted note. There we go. And then I press the space bar just to move on. And then I can press C. Now I need a D flat. So I'm going to press the minus key on the keyboard to give me the flat symbol. And then I'm going to press 0, as I did before, to get the natural. And then a crotchet E to finish. So there's the singer's part. Now, by default, I've just pressed Shift S because that's what my brain tells me to do. It's a good idea generally. So now I want to, let me just check. I'll enter some lyrics, I think, from here. Press Shift L for lyrics, and I'm just going to type the lyrics in. So I'm just going to press the space bar to move on. For the splits, I'm just going to press hyphen. The split. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. I need to press hyphen twice, and then this next one, it's actually split the word. If you want to put 2 words on the same note, you can press Control Alt Spacebar, for example, and it would put both of those words on the same note. But in actual case, in this case, I'm going to press Shift hyphen to give me the underscore, and then I also need to put the accent on the E. And then so I'll press space to move on. You'll see, and so you'll get the little slur underneath the lyrics there. So that was the underscore that did that for me. And then finish off. There we go. Now, if you make any mistakes at any point, you can just use the left arrow, and you can go backwards through words, and backwards and forwards, and correct them if you need to. I'll press the space bar and carry on. I'll just finish the rest of this line quickly. Oh, there's a mistake. I pressed hyphen too many times, didn't I? Oh, not enough spaces. Yes, okay. So actually, you can double click on a word. You can select a word if you want to, and just press enter, and then I'm going to backspace up and correct. I should probably look at what I'm doing and try not to focus on the comments online, but there you go. Apologies if anybody knows Italian, Latin better than I do. That wouldn't be difficult. So now actually what I'm going to do is, no, it's typing the lyrics is fine, but I want to enter maybe an English translation of these. So I could select this note here, and I could do Shift L again for lyrics, and it's going to put me back into voice 1 because that's the default. If I just press the down arrow, then it will give me voice 2. So I could now just start typing, and it would automatically position voice 2. So here is, for example, I could type in voice 2. But that's not what I want in this case. Also, I press down to get to voice 2. If I press up, then I can go to chorus. So you can automatically enter a chorus if you want to. But as I was on voice 1, so I press Shift L, I got to voice 1. If I press Alt down, then it'll give me 1 star, which is a translation. So you have a translation line for verse 1. So it's still verse 1, but it's not, it's a translation. It will sit underneath. I'm just going to enter an English translation of these lyrics. Apologies if you don't agree with where I'm putting the syllables. It's an example. Yes, and I made a mistake there too. Anyway, you get the idea. So we've automatically positioned them underneath verse 1 and put them in italics because they're a translation. And if you do ever investigate these in the properties panel at the bottom, you can see the shortcut there for the properties panel, then it ticked the is translation option because it knows that is still line number 1, verse number 1, but it is a translation of those. So now we've got a fair way into this piece. Of course, you might want to give it a title. So from File Project Info, I should have put a title in here. Because our default template will put that in the right place, then all I need to do is type it into this box. Oh, not arranger, composer. So I'll press OK. Now we've got the title, we've got the composer, and our default templates, of course, also put the title at the top of page 2, so you can see where that is. And as I said, if you want to carry on at this point, then you can just carry on typing music. You can press Shift B. You can add maybe another 8 bars to the end of this. One other things you might want to do is, for example, in layout options. So Apple Shift L or Control Shift L. If you go to vertical spacing, you might want to say, well, hide empty staves if possible. For example, when the singer's not singing, and I can apply that. You might also want to say in staves and systems that you don't want the name to be displayed. So I'll change that to none. I'll change that to none. Press apply. So there we go. So we're hiding those. And then, for example, here, you say, well, actually, if the singer started on a new line, then that would make sense as well. So in engrave mode, press Apple 3 to get to engrave mode. I'm just going to press Shift S, which will then put a system break in here. So now the piano's got 2 lines here. I don't have any empty staves. That's fine. And then they'll carry on to this point. And then maybe actually here you say, well, I want that to be the end of the page. So again, you can just say, well, and there's an option over here as well for a frame break. So you can just say that's the end of that page, for example. Now it can carry on the music on the next page. So you kind of do, if you need to divide the page up and do options like that, system breaks and frame breaks, I think you'll find very useful. I also had a question in the week about starting a page with a text frame without having to choose an instrument first. Now, unfortunately, in Dorico, you will at least have to put a player in. Without a player, you're not going to get any of the master page options or anything else. So you do have to, at least in setup mode, add a player. but you don't have to add any music to them. From that point, what you can do is say from the beginning in engrave mode here, I click this little plus button here for insert pages. And now I can say insert one page before page 1. I don't need a master page, just insert a blank page. So now we've got a blank page here. So if I turn on my frames tool, I can add in a new text frame, for example. I wanted to start the music with a text frame. So here is a text frame at the start, and that could be for a title, an explanation of something that's happening on this piece. You could change the font size, tweak all the options for that particular text frame in there. Add multiple text frames if you want to, add graphics, but somebody wanted to know about creating title pages, basically. We did cover a bit of that also last month, so if you have a look at the January Discover Dorico, we looked at a lot more options for these. But after that session, somebody did also ask about inserting a new frame in the middle of a page. So for example, in this page here, if you want to put a new frame in here, it is as simple as just selecting the new insert music frame item here on the left hand side and just drawing the frame wherever you want it to appear. Now, by default, Dorico is saying, well, okay, well, I'll put the same music in it, so you can see there's something in there. So if you wanted this to be a different example, you might want to create some other music to sit in that box. So for example, quickly in setup mode, I'll add a new flow just for flow 2, and maybe flow 2 doesn't include the soprano, it only includes the piano, for example. So now back in engrave mode, I can tell that this box to only use flow 2, which is a new flow just for piano. So this is now an independent, it could be a new movement, a new piece, or it could just be, in my case, this is just a little graphical example of some notes. So in here, it works exactly the same as the other frames I'd had before, and I can enter music into this frame, and this frame I can move to be wherever I want it. You may potentially more usefully want to move the bottom of the other frame up so that they're not overlapping, but you can have that frames overlapping, or if you really want to, you can actually put this frame wherever you like. It can literally sit wherever you want it to be. So I just said there was a question in the week about kind of inserting new options in the middle of a page. If there's other examples that you want to know, how to set up XYZ, in last month's session we did look at starting a new piece in the middle of a page and how you do that, or a new movement, starting it halfway up a page, because by default Dorico will start it on a new page. So you may want to also refer to that. Now we're kind of running out of time today, so very quickly, a few other things we wanted to cover, and it won't be very quick because I'm not. So we said there is an update about to come out. Yes, we did say it was coming out in the middle of February, but there was an error of the type that you don't want, which was found during testing. So we wanted to make sure that was fixed beforehand. So apologies if you're, where's the next update? Well, it is coming, but there's just a small problem that I think has already been fixed. So any day now, I'm not going to give you a day because I could very well be wrong then. But any day now, there will be an update, which will be 1030. Now, we have said before, I'm sure you've read, it is a fair number of kind of bug fixes and changes to things rather than big new features. But the kind of things that are included in that update, I don't think I'm stepping on anybody's toes by telling you the things that are in there. So things like enhanced playback of grace notes and 1- and 2-note tremolos. If in play mode you've seen our playback options dialog, where you can set, the dynamic curve power and note dynamics and those kind of things, accents and marcatos and humanizing options. There's also some new options in here. So in timings, for example, there's some great grace note playback options, and there's some tremolo playback options that you'll be able to find in there. Also, switching playing techniques via VST expression maps now will work more reliably. Improved responsiveness for mixer faders and better handling of effects. So if you've used our mixer, there's a little button up here. Then, for example, in some computers, for example, on my Mac, when I'm using a trackpad, I can use a 2-finger scroll to go sideways, which I find very useful to see various tracks and options in here. But sometimes the faders would potentially jump slightly because of the way the 2-finger scroll worked on some computers. So there's some little things like that have been done as well. There's some more features for working with rests in polyphonic music, which are clever. I won't go into them right now. If it's the kind of thing you want to know about, you can either check out the update, or maybe we'll cover it next month. Very usefully, there's now an auto backup feature for Dorico projects. So as I've been working on this project, I have been pressing save fairly regularly, but there's now an option so that, for example, in your projects folder, so your Dorico projects folder on your computer, you will find, once you've installed the update, there'll be a backup projects folder appear in there, and it will by default start saving backups of the project just in case. If you do want to look for these kind of options in the preferences, you will be able to find that there's a backup project folder. You can set the location of that, and you can also set the number of backups per project, which by default will be 5. And then when you press save after 5, obviously it will just delete the oldest version of that, and it will save you a new version. So you'll have the 5 most recent versions. There's a few other options and updates as well. So there'll be further performance improvements when inputting and editing projects with many flows. You may not have, may not have had any problems. In a few cases, some people did. There's also some improvements to handling some of the key commands, the shortcuts for international or non-English keyboard layouts. I was talking to some guys in France recently, for example, who were having some of these issues. So 1030 will address some of those. There's also, for example, text items will now they're now set to avoid collisions for new projects. There are a whole bunch of options. As soon as the update is available, there will also be a PDF available of all of the version history, the things that have been fixed. It's actually quite a long list, so I'm not going to go through them all now, but there are certainly a lot of things that have been fixed or changed, but not a huge number of new features that I know some people might be waiting for at the moment, which is a good time to mention if you want to keep up to speed with what's going on. Obviously, we're being as open as we can be about these things. So if you have a look on blog.steinberg.net, you'll find Daniel's blog. If I just for a second find another window, you can see. Here we go. So here's Daniel's blog, blog.steinberg.net. Most recently, we're kind of also doing some showcases of some people who have used Dorico, some projects they've done, they've finished, and we're quizzing some of them about what they really liked, and being honest with their answers about what are the other things that they'd like the product to do. We'd like this from lots of people. If there are things that you would obviously like the product to do, please get in touch with us. You'll also find in here, though, the development diary. So earlier in February, there was a post about the latest development diary, which tells you we're working on 1030, but it also tells you in here the kind of things that we're working on at the moment. So piano pedaling that some people have been asking about. There's a lot of detail about the piano pedaling options in here. There's also some of the things for spelling during step input from a MIDI keyboard, and what happens on those between various products, and of course chord symbols. So we're currently working on it's going to be a very large update, the next one I think, which will be on things like chord symbols. So if you want to keep in touch with we can't always say when the next thing is happening because we don't know how long things will take, but if you want to know what the next things are that we're working on, then the blog is a very good way to find those out. If I've moved too quickly through any of the session today, then apologies. Give me feedback on those kind of things. There are lots of very simple, quick videos, kind of 2 or 3 minutes of how to do things on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Dorico. The how-to videos are covering lots of those. So there's lots of videos for setup mode. There's lots of videos now for write mode. Anthony's doing a good job working on the engrave mode options at the moment. We also covered engrave mode in a fair amount of detail in last month's Discover Dorico session. So however you choose to learn, hopefully you'll find an appropriate video option for those. And obviously we're working on various other documentation options for people who prefer to work through things that way. So I think for this week, let me just check the live chat and make sure there's nothing I've missed on there too much. There are a couple of options on here. One about how do I enlarge the staff size. If you want to enlarge the staff size for the entire project, or decrease, in fact, the staff size for the entire project, then you basically want to be in write and in setup mode, and you want to be in layout options. Now, the reason I never find that in the menu is that from any mode, so I'm in write mode, I just press Apple Shift L, which gets me into layout options. So that shortcut works from any mode. So now in here, if you go to page setup, you can change the size here. So it lists it in size in millimeters. Or if you want to, you can do the space size as well in points. And you can change the size. So if I say, actually, I'd like this to be size 7 instead of size 3 and apply that, then you'll see that the staves all get much smaller. Or, of course, you can do that bigger. This is also where you set the page size. So sometimes when you want to make things fit, if you're writing an orchestral score and you've started on A4, then just if you set it to A3 and a smaller staff size, then you'll find, obviously, lots of things will fit better. You can also change, if you select a system break, if you've got one in there, then you can also change the space size from that system break onwards. So there's an option in the properties panel to kind of override just for this little bit if I want to change the space size from that system break onwards. And there was one other question about changing the default font of all the fonts. That's difficult to say, isn't it? So in engrave mode, if you have a look in the engrave menu, there's music fonts, font styles, paragraph styles, and character styles in here. Now, depending on fonts wise, whether you mean the music fonts or the font styles of things, or the paragraph styles indeed, this is basically where you would change them. And a lot of them have a parent, so they're kind of cascading font styles. So if you change the default text, you'll find that actually that will, Academico by default, that will change a lot of the other options that you want. I'm presuming it's text styles we're talking about here. But if there's like I said, send me an email, discoverdorico@steinberg.de, if you want to, if there's anything else you want to cover on those kind of options. There's a question also about integration with Cubase 9, and I have a feeling, Steve, that you emailed me about it. You're one of the guys I need to email back. Because I've overrun in this session, I'm going to say that I will talk to you directly via email. If you're not the Steve who's emailed me, then can you email me on discoverdorico@steinberg.de, and we'll maybe discuss it that way. I think maybe we're heading towards one of the next sessions in the next months being more on kind of playback options. Obviously, Steinberg's released Hallion 6. You might want to use, I don't know, VSL, Vienna Symphonic Library. You might want to talk about expression maps. I know Paul Walmsley, who's on here anyway, he's working on various options in play mode. So maybe some of those options, maybe we can discuss in another month. But talking of that, the next session for Discover Dorico, we're planning will be, it's always the last Thursday of the month. So we're planning at the moment that the next session will be on the 30th of March. So Thursday the 30th of March at the same time. If you all disagree with that, then please let me know and we'll find another date and time. We'll end the session there. If, like I said, any questions, please let us know at any time during the month, and you can help shape these sessions and on what we're going to discuss. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. See you next time.